They thought no one was watching. They thought their words were safe behind encrypted screens and private group chats. They were wrong. In early 2024, Reuters broke open a story that ripped the mask off American politics. Leaked messages, dozens of them, from political operatives, elected officials, and strategists who shaped policy during one of the most divisive periods in modern history. What they said when they thought the cameras were off wasn't just controversial, it was vile. And it revealed something far worse than individual bigotry. It exposed the machinery of manipulation that thrives in the shadows of American democracy. This is the story of the leaked chats that changed everything. Reuters didn't just stumble onto this. Investigative journalists spent months verifying thousands of messages from private group chats used by political figures and strategists between 2020 and 2023. The leak came from inside. Someone with access. Someone who'd seen enough. The messages weren't just politically incorrect, they crossed every line. Racism, antisemitism, Islamophobia, glorification of violence. These weren't fringe nobodies shouting into the void. These were people with power, people making decisions that affected millions of lives. And when those messages went public, the response from their circles wasn't horror, it was damage control. The first instinct wasn't accountability, it was spin. Let's be clear about what was in those messages, because sanitizing this does nobody any favors. Multiple participants used dehumanizing language to describe immigrant communities, referring to them as invasive threats that needed to be eliminated from American society. One message thread discussed minority voters in explicitly racial terms, strategizing how to suppress turnout through targeted misinformation campaigns. Another participant shared anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, claiming that a Jewish cabal controlled American media and financial institutions. There were messages celebrating acts of political violence, with participants expressing admiration for individuals who'd carried out attacks on perceived ideological enemies. One exchange discussed Muslim elected officials using language that portrayed them as enemy infiltrators rather than American citizens. Paraphrased for safety, but the intent was crystal clear. These people don't belong here. They're not real Americans, and we need to make sure they never gain real power. In another thread, participants joked about police brutality against black protesters, sharing memes that glorified violence and mocked victims. There were strategic discussions about how to use racial fear in campaign messaging without appearing overtly racist, how to dog whistle, how to activate tribal instincts, and how to make hate profitable. This wasn't locker room talk. This was premeditated political warfare designed to exploit America's deepest wounds. So what drives people in positions of power to speak like this? Arrogance. They genuinely believed they were untouchable, that their private conversations would stay private forever, that the rules didn't apply to them. But there's something deeper. These weren't just random outbursts of prejudice, they were ideological commitments. For some participants, the cruelty was the point. Research on political extremism shows that exposure to radical content doesn't just happen by accident. Studies tracking digital behavior patterns found that over 70% of individuals consuming extremist political content had already espoused extremist beliefs before their digital activity intensified. They sought it out, they normalized it, they spread it. The participants in these leaked chats weren't exceptions. They didn't just hold racist views, they weaponized them. They didn't just fear demographic change, they strategized around sabotaging it. This wasn't ignorance, it was calculation. And the group chat became an echo chamber where extremism normalized itself, where each vile statement made the next one easier, where dehumanization became routine, where violence became abstract enough to joke about. These conversations reveal something horrifying about political polarization in America. For these participants, the other side wasn't just wrong, they were subhuman. And once you cross that line, anything becomes justifiable. Public speeches are performances, campaign ads are marketing, but private conversations, those reveal who someone actually is. When politicians stand at podiums and talk about unity, about respecting all Americans, about bringing the country together, you can dismiss it as empty rhetoric. But when those same politicians go into private group chats and reveal what they really think, that's the truth. And the truth in these leaked chats is that some of America's power brokers don't just disagree with their opponents, they hate them. Not politically, personally, viscerally. They see entire communities as enemies. They view democracy itself as an obstacle when it gives power to people they despise. This matters because these aren't fringe actors. These are people who've influenced legislation, shaped campaign strategies, and advised elected officials. Their private bigotry became public policy. Their hateful rhetoric in group chats translated into voter suppression efforts, immigration crackdowns, and policies designed to punish communities they viewed as threats. The leaked chats aren't just embarrassing, they're evidence. Evidence of how contempt for diversity drives political strategy in modern America. When the leak went public, the response split along predictable lines. Some called for resignations, investigations, accountability. Others circled the wagons. They claimed the messages were taken out of context, that everyone says things they don't mean in private, that this was a politically motivated hit job designed to silence conservative voices. But here's the problem with that defense. Context doesn't make dehumanization acceptable. Privacy doesn't excuse bigotry. And claiming victimhood when your own words expose your hatred is the ultimate bad faith argument. The real impact on these leaks isn't on the participants. Most of them will survive, they'll rebrand, they'll find new roles in the political machine. The real impact is on public trust. Every American who already suspected that some politicians view them as less than human now has proof. Every community targeted in those chats knows exactly how they're perceived by people in power. And every voter who wanted to believe that American politics could rise above tribal hatred now has to grapple with the reality. It can't. Not when the people running the system view entire populations as enemies to be defeated rather than citizens to be served. The leaked chats didn't create polarization, they exposed how deep it actually runs. But if you think this ends with accountability, you're not paying attention. Here's what the leaked chats really reveal about American politics. The problem isn't just a few bad actors saying awful things. The problem is the ecosystem that allows them to thrive. These participants didn't operate in isolation. They were connected to campaigns, to media outlets, to think tanks and advocacy groups. Their ideas didn't stay in group chats. They spread. They influenced policy. They shaped narratives. They activated voters. And the structures that elevated them, political parties, donor networks, media platforms, didn't care about their bigotry as long as they delivered results. That's the system. Private hatred becomes public strategy. Extremism gets repackaged as populism, and the people harmed by it are told they're overreacting. The leaked chats prove something that marginalized communities have known for generations. When people in power tell you who they are, believe them. When they dehumanize you in private, they'll harm you in public. And when the system protects them after they're exposed, it's telling you exactly whose side it's on. The leaked chat scandal will fade from the headlines, the participants will move on, some will face consequences, most won't. But the damage is permanent, because now we know. We know what some of America's power brokers really think. We know how they talk when they believe no one's listening. We know the contempt, the hatred, the calculated cruelty. And we know that the distance between private bigotry and public policy is shorter than anyone wants to admit. This wasn't just a leak, it was a revelation, a glimpse behind the curtain of American politics that revealed something rotten at its core. And the scariest part? These weren't the only group chats. They're just the ones that got exposed. So the next time you hear a politician talk about unity, about respect, about bringing America together, remember what they say when they think you're not watching. Because that's who they really are. And that's the fight we're actually in. This is Capital Clash, and this is the truth they didn't want you to see.